Hello, greetings, everybody. This your girl Tiffany coming through right here live in effect on YouTube via Facebook. So, shout out to everybody out there that's watching. Thank you guys for subscribing to my channel. For my new subscriber out there, and also I want to also thank you guys for sharing my videos and checking out the contents on here. So today I am going to be dealing with a topic about Professor Ali Mazrui. So many people don't know who Professor Ali Mazrui was. He was a Kenyan professor. He was born in Kenya and he lived in America, but he did a lot of studies on African history and also those in the diaspora, but particularly African history. So, and also Islamic history, because in his background, he was also a Muslim. So, I have some sources and information regarding to his life and his studies. And also, I got some articles and some books that I think you guys should check out. So, let's go ahead and get right to it. All right, so as you can see, I'm on the website. I'm on everybody's little favorite go-to website. So as you see, that's a picture of the late Ali Mazrui. That's a picture of him. So Ali Alam Allah was it Ali Alayam or Al Amin? I think it's Ali Al Amin Mazrui, who was born on February the 24th of 1933, and he died on October 12th. October the 12th of 2014. He was a Kenyan-born American academic professor and political writer on African and Islamic studies and North and South relations. He was born in Mombasa, Kenya. His position included director of the Institute of Global Cultural Studies at Binghamton University in Binghamton, New York, and director of the Center for Afro-American African Studies at the University of Michigan. He produced the television documentary series The Africans, a Triple Heritage. Okay, so it says he was the son of Al Amin bin Ali Mazrui, the chief Islamic judge in Qadi courts of Kenya colony. His father was also a scholar and author, and one of his books has been translated into English by Amza Yusuf as the content of character, to which Ali supplied a foreword. The Mazrui family was a historically wealthy and important family in Kenya, having previously been the rulers of Mombasa. Ali's father was the chief Qadi of Kenya, the highest authority on Islamic law. Mazrui credited his father for instilling in him the urge for intellectual debate, as his father not only participated in court proceedings, but also was a renowned uh, pamphleteer and public debater. Mazrui would, from a young age, accompany his father to court and listen in on his political and moral debates. Mazrui initially intended to follow the path of his father as an Islamist and pursue his study in Al Azhar University in Egypt. Due to poor performance in the Cambridge School Certificate examination in 1949, Mazrui was refused entry to Makerere College, now Makerere University, the only tertiary education institute in East Africa at the time. He then worked in the Mombasa Institute of Muslim Education, now Technical University of Mombasa. All right, so In addition to English, Mazrui also spoke Swahili and Arabic. After getting a Kenyan government scholarship, Mazrui furthered his study and obtained his BA with distinction from Manchester University in Great Britain in 1960, his MA from Columbia University in New York in 1961, and his doctorate from Oxford University in 1966. He was influenced by Kwame Nkrumah's idea of Pan-Africanism and Confucianism, which formed the backbone of his discussion on Africa's triple heritage: Africanity, Islam, and Christianity. All right, so going further down, so it says Mazrui was later approached by Idi Amin, who was the president of Uganda at the end of Mazrui's time at Makerere. Amin, according to Mazrui, wanted Mazrui to become his special advisor. Mazrui declined this invitation for fear that it would be unsafe, and by doing so, lost his political standing in Uganda. This would be what Mazrui ultimately felt forced to leave. I mean, ultimately felt forced him to leave the University of Makerere. Mazrui often said that he would like to return to Uganda, but cited his straining relationship with the Ugandan government as well as the unfriendliness of the Ugandan people towards a Kenyan political scientist as the factors keeping him away. And Mazrui also held a professorship. So wait, he was hired as a professor as a professor of political science at the University of Michigan. He also held a professorship at University of Jos in Nigeria. He held that spending time teaching and being part of the discourse in Africa was important not to not losing his understanding of African perspective. It says from 1978 until 1981, Mazrui served as the director of the Center for Afro-American and African Studies at the University of Michigan. First, it was a central view of Mazrui that the African American and the African connection had to be strengthened. He believed the way to better Africa was to educate African Americans in global politics and to strengthen their connection with Africa. All things that could be under the purview of CAAS. However, he also seemed to doubt the ability of a program like CAAS to accomplish anything. During his earlier years at U of M, he criticized such programs, saying that in response to Black activism, some universities just established a Black studies program with a kind of political cynicism, which I found rather difficult to admire, to say the very least. All right, so stop right there. So Ali Alalim Mazrui was born in Kenya, and he became a professor. And what inspired him to become a professor is because his father, who was a judge at the time and also was into debates. So after watching his dad doing public debates, that inspired him to want to do more as far as getting into the academic fields, do more study and research regard to African history and also African American history. Now, there are some things that led into his doubt as far as like the programs that was presented at the University of Michigan. He really wanted to bring the connection between African history, between African people and African Americans, so it can help strengthen the African diaspora. But he just felt like the programs that was there, it was not from a place of sincerity, but a place from being counterproductive wise. So that's how he felt about the Black study programs that was going on at the University of Michigan. So just continue. All right, so it said he taught at the University of Michigan until 1989. He took a 2 year leave of absence to accept the Albert Schweitzer professorship at SUNY Binghamton. Mazrui's departure from U of M was no less eventful than his departure from Macquarie. Mazrui announced his resignation from the University of Michigan on May 29th of 1991. Leading up to this point, there had been a highly publicized bidding war between U of M and SUNY. Reportedly, SUNY offered Mazrui a $500,000 package, which included a $105,000 salary as compared to his $71,500 salary at U of M, as well as the funds for 3 professors of Mazrui choosing 3 graduate assistant, a secretary, and travel expenses. The University of Michigan reportedly matched this offer, but Mazrui decided it was too little too late. He stated that he was unconvinced by U of M's commitment to the study of political science in the Third War. Both Governor Mario Cummaro from New York and Governor James Blanchard from Michigan gave Mazrui personal calls to convince him to choose the university in their states. The whole affair sparked questions about the commodification as well as the celebrity of university professors. And then going further down, in spite of the University of Michigan's effort to retain Ali Mazrui, James Donnerstad, the president of the university at the time, came under heavy fire for not being proactive enough in the retention of an esteemed professor. Mazrui had been hired in 1974. While the university was under heavy criticism, especially from the Second Black Action Movement, for not keeping its promises for diversity in the student body and among the faculty. In contrast, Donnerstad argued that by 1989, the university was doing a much better job of diversifying. They had added 45 minority faculty that year, 13 more than the year before, and the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, and had seen skyrocketing minority recruitment. Even still, there was a worry that the university was focusing on recruiting minorities and not on making them stick around. So, central views. Africa's triple heritage. The inspiration for his documentary series, The African, A Triple Heritage, was Ali's view that much of modern Africa could be described by its 3 main influences. First, the colonial and imperialist legacy of the West. Second, the spiritual and cultural influences of Islam spreading from the East. And third, Africa's own indigenous legacy. The paradoxes of Africa. Mazrui believed there were 6 paradoxes that are essential to understanding Africa. First, Africa was the birthplace of humankind, but it is the last continent besides Antarctica to be made habitable in a modern sense. Second, although Africans have not been the most abused group of people in modern history, they have been the most humiliated. Third, Africa is the most different from the West culturally, but is westernizing very quickly. Africa possesses extreme natural wealth, but its people are very poor. Africa is huge, yet very fragmented. And number 6, Africa is geographically central, but politically marginal. The problem of Africa's dependency. Mazrui argued that as long as Africa remained dependent on the development world, no relationship between the development world and Africa would be beneficial to Africa in the face of the entente between the U.S. and the USSR, or the Soviet Union at that time, which was Russia. Mazrui was quoted as saying, "When elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. When elephants make love, however, it is also the grass that suffers." Africa's greatest resource. Mazrui believed the greatest resource that Africa possessed was the African people. In particular, he pointed to the African Americans, arguing that they must remember their African heritage and find a way to exert their influences over U.S. foreign policy if Africa ever hopes to climb out of its marginal position. Ali explained to a friend that his joint professorship at Michigan and Jos was his attempt to be a part of such a connection. And then the organization. In addition to his academic appointments, Mazrui also served as president of the African Studies Association and as vice president of the International Political Science Association, and has also served as special advisor to the World Bank. He has also served on the board of the American Muslim Council in Washington, D.C. All right, and so go down, talk about his works. So his research interests included African politics, international political culture, political Islam, and North-South relation. He is author or co-author of more than 20 books. Mazrui has also published hundreds of articles in major scholastic journals and for public media. He has also served on the editorial boards of more than 20 international scholarly journals. Mazrui was widely consulted by heads of states and governments, international media, and research institutions for political strategies and alternative thoughts. So he first rose to prominence as a critic of some of the accepted orthodoxies of African intellectuals in the 1960s and 1970s. He was critical of African socialism and all strands of Marxism. He argued that communism was a Western import just as unsuited for the African condition as the earlier colonial attempts to install European-type governments. He argued that a revised liberalism could help the continent and describe himself as a proponent of a unique ideology of African liberalism. At the same time, he was a prominent critic of the current world order. He believed the current capitalism system was deeply exploitative of Africa and that the West rarely, if ever, lived up to their liberal ideals and could be described as global apartheid. He has opposed Western intervention in the developing world, such as the Iraq War. He has also long been opposed to many of the policies of Israel, being one of the first to try to link the treatment of Palestinians with South Africa's apartheid. And to this day, there's still the conflicts between the Israeli and the Palestinians over the land. So, especially in recent years, Mazrui became a well-known commentator on Islam and Islamism. While rejecting violence and terrorism, Mazrui has praised some of the anti-imperialist segment that plays an important role in modern Islamic fundamentalism. He has also argued controversially that Sharia law is not incompatible with democracy. In addition to his written work, Mazrui was also the creator of the television series, The African Age Triple Heritage, which was jointly produced by the BBC and the Public Broadcasting Service in association with the Nigerian Television Authority and funded by the Edinburgh CPB project. A book by the same title was jointly published by BBC Publication and Little Brown and Company. So, of course, there's some controversy. They said The Africans was a controversial series for some. In the UK, where it aired on the BBC, it slid more or less under the radar. In the United States, however, where it aired on some PBS channels, The Africans drew a great amount of scrutiny for being allegedly anti-Western. According to critics, The Africans blamed too many of Africa's problems on the negative influence of Europe and America, and the loudest criticism came for the portrayal of Muammar Gaddafi as a virtuous leader. The loudest critic of the documentary series was Lynn Cheney, who was at the time the chairperson of the National Endowment for the Humanity. The endowment had put $600,000 towards the funding of the Africans, and Lynn Cheney felt that Mazrui had not held to the condition on which the endowment had granted the funding. Cheney said that she was promised a variety of interviews presenting different sides of the story and was outraged when there was no such interviews in the show. Lynn Cheney demanded that the NEH name and logo be removed from the credits. She also had the words "a commentary" added to the American version of the series alongside Ali Mazrui credits. In defense of the African and his alleged bias, Mazrui made the statement, "I was invited by PBS and the BBC to tell the American British people about the African people, a view from the inside. I am surprised then that people are disappointed not to get an American view. An effort was made to be fair, but not to sound attractive to Americans." Ward Chamberlain, the president of series co-producer WETA, also stepped in to publicly defend the series and Mazrui by saying that in a fair telling of history, the Western world shouldn't be expected to come out looking good from the African perspective. And also, here's some more controversial. It says his experience as a controversial figure was different in the two continents. While he was surrounded by controversy at U of M, he has been accused of being anti-Semitic, anti-American, and generally radical. He wrote to his African colleagues saying that the debate had remained remarkably civil and academic. On the other hand, in Jos, things got so heated that the university faculty once put out a flyer threatening to punish anti-Mazrui libel in the pugilist style. Ironically, the libeler was a socialist accusing Mazrui of being overly imperialist for participating in Western dialogues. So basically, you can't satisfy everybody in the academic field. No, you keep saying. First of all, you did not spell the word "saying" correctly. I don't know. You got the word Sam Maserati. It's not Sam Maserati. I don't know what Sam Maserati is. Are you trying to say that I keep saying Maserati? Maybe if you worry about your spelling before you worry about me mispronouncing the word Mazrui, then you can tell me that. But you're not spelling the word "saying" correctly, sir. Again, the word, what you say, you keep saying his name wrong. It's just like Sam. You can't even spell the word. You can't even spell the word Sam. You put the word Sam. So how you gonna tell me I'm saying his name wrong and you not spelling the word Sam? I mean, you know what? I can't stand that. How can somebody try to correct you when they can't even correct their spelling? You put the word Sam. But thank you for trying to correct me, though. But make sure you correct your spelling the next time you correct me, okay? But I appreciate you correcting me, though. So, all right, folks, before you try to correct somebody, make sure you get your spelling check correct. That's embarrassed. That's embarrassed to try to correct somebody when you ain't got your spelling check correct. Somebody put Sam instead of Sam. But you try and correct me on how I mispronounce the name. Make it. Okay. I appreciate that, though. I appreciate that, yo. Be careful out there. Don't drive and text at the same time, though. Okay. Yeah, be careful. Don't drive and be on the phone at the same time. You know, that's not really safe. So, but I appreciate it. All right. So I was told that his name is not Mazrui, it's Mazrui. So that's why I was told his name is Mazrui. So going back to the article. All right. Oh, going back to what I was saying before. Dang. Anyways, what I was saying before I get back to the article is the fact that you can't please everybody in the academic field. So some people in academia is going to feel like you're being very biased and that you're going to speak from one perspective instead of speaking from the perspective they want you to speak on. So obviously with his case, when he was doing a documentary series about the African and the triple heritage, the whole thing was you're speaking from a Western, you're not speaking from a Western point of view, you're just speaking from an anti-Western point of view. Well, but they put the documentary out there and they wanted him as an African person to speak on the experience of what it's like for him as an African and knowing the history about Africa. So the thing is, of course, he's not going to speak from a Western point of view. Yes, it's going to be very anti-Western because if he's telling the story, he's got to tell a story based on the African perspective. He's not going to tell the story to just accommodate or bring about propaganda. So basically what they were accusing him of being a propagandist in his documentary. But how can he do so if you want him to tell the story and speak on the history about Africa from his African point of view as a person that was born and raised in the continent? Again, you can't satisfy everybody. And so that was the case. They felt like, oh, his documentary wasn't right. It was just more like propaganda and he was being radical. I mean, what do you expect? So you can't please everybody. So everybody's going to have their point of view, especially those here in the West. They're going to feel some kind of way if you're a foreigner and you're telling your history about your country and your people. And if you're not mentioning the Americans or the British people in the way they want you to speak, then it becomes a problem. How interesting is that? How interesting is that? So I guess basically you're not allowed to speak truth to light. I see it's funny, these Europeans, they want to control narratives. They want to control your scholarship. They want to control your source. They want to tell you how to give history and tell the history, but you can't tell them how to put historical information out. So it gets very tricky, and you have to be careful with certain narratives and certain sources that you read from. So even with me, when I look up certain sources, I'm very cautious and very picky about the sources that I'm using, because I want to make sure that I get the accurate source from the individuals or about the individuals versus just getting a bunch of information that's based on bias and based on somebody's point of view. But anyways, let's see what else I can find on here. So it talks about the Israel and Palestine, which I'm not going to really go into that. And it also goes into the nuclear proliferation, which I'm not going to that. So down here, it shows the position he held. Oops. It says membership of organizations. All right, of course, it got the media. Let's go down to his death. So according to the press reports, Mazrui has not been feeling well for several months prior to his death. He died of natural causes at his home in Bristol in New York on Sunday, October the 12th, 2014. His body was repatriated to his homeland Mombasa, and it arrived early morning on Sunday, October 19th. It was taken to the family home where it was washed as pre-Islamic custom. The funeral prayer was held at the Baruch Mosque in Old Town, and he was laid to rest at the family's Mazrui graveyard opposite Fort Jesus. His burial was attended by Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala, Majority Leader Aden Bear Dule, Governor Hassan Ali Joho, and Senators Hassan Omar and Abu Chiaba. Okay, so as you can see, there's the publications down at the bottom. So these are the publication that he has written from 1967 all the way up to 2008, but there's more publication than that. All right, and down here you can find the references. You can find the further reading, external links, and that's it. All right, so let's look at some of his works that he has done. All right. All right, so here's some of the articles that he has written. And so the first article I'm going to look at is this one, which is called The Blood of Experience, the Failed State and Political Collapse in Africa. And this was written in 1995. And was published by Sage Publication Incorporation. All right, and the source was World Policy Journal, volume 12, number 1. All right, and it goes on to say, we used to think that decolonization consists of a nationalist struggle against colonialism, the granting of independence, and the replacing of colonial symbols of authority with national flags and national anthems. Decolonization was complete, we thought, when colonially educated members of their African elite, the author included, came to the fore, and when some of us, for example, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Leopold Senghor of Senegal, inherit the reins of the colonial states from our colonial masters. It says the question that has arisen lately, however, is whether real decolonization is not the winning of formal independence, not the changing of the guard on Independence Day, the raising of new flags, or the singing of the new national anthems, but the collapse of the colonial states itself, the cruel and bloody and disintegration of colonial structures, liberation and decolonization can no longer be equated. Are Somalia, Rwanda, Liberia, Angola, Burundi experiencing the death throes of the old order? Is the colonial order being washed away with buckets of blood? Or are we witnessing the agonizing birth pains of genuinely post-colonial order? Is the blood in fact spilling in the maternity ward of history as a new Africa is trying to breathe? Until we know whether this is the birth of a truly decolonized Africa, we cannot celebrate. In any case, who can celebrate in the midst of all this blood and carnage? So when he's talking about the ongoing wars that was going on in these countries, Somalia, Rwanda, Liberia, and Angola, and Burundi. So they was having, of course, the tribal wars and civil wars in their country, etc. So that's what he's going into. So if anybody remember about the movie Rwanda, the Hotel Rwanda, which was based on this true story about the two different tribes. They were going at each other, and of course the UN intervening, and um, one of the leaders of Rwanda, where he happened to find people from his tribe murdered inside the hotel and on the streets. So this happened around 1993-94. This was the time when Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. So it was a very crucial time period. All right. Anyways, if you guys want to check it out, you can look it up for yourself. Ali Mazrui, World Policy Journal, Volume 12, Number 1, Sage Publication Incorporation. All right, so the next one is the Black woman and the problem of gender in African perspective. So Ali Mazrui, the Black woman and the problem of gender in African perspective. There are three levels of sexism in the world: benevolent, benign, and malignant. There are also three levels of redemption from sexism for the Black woman: liberating the Black woman, centering the Black woman, and empowering the Black woman. While illustrations will be drawn mainly from the Black world, and especially from Africa, comparison with the rest of the world will inform much of the following analysis. We define benevolent sexism as a form of discrimination in which protective or generous towards the otherwise underprivileged gender, gallantry and chivalry in defense of a woman's honor is a form of benevolent sexism. In Western culture, men volunteer to carry heavy suitcases on behalf of women, to open doors for them, and until recently to pay restaurants' bill for themselves as well as for their woman date. These days, more and more Western women insist on paying their own share of the restaurant bill as a mark of equality and liberation. In these old days, men in the West used to vacate their seats on overcrowded buses in favor of women passengers. That was benevolent sexism. In 20th century Western history, one of the most dramatic example of benevolent sexism concerned the issue of who had priority to use the lifeboats while the Titanic was sinking in April of 1912. The British ship had hit an iceberg not far from Newfoundland on its way to New York. There were not enough lifeboats on board to save all the passengers. Indeed, the ship had been regarded as unsinkable. As the icy waters were gradually swallowing the Titanic, one benevolent sexist decision had already been made. Women and children would have priority access to the lifeboats. 1,500 people died in those icy waters, the overwhelming majority of them men. Hundreds of others were rescued in lifeboats. The overwhelming majority of them were women and children. In the last hours of the Titanic, sexism had operated in favor of women. How much benevolent sexism is there in Africa, and what form does it take? Are African women spared carrying heavy loads by their men, while there is indeed considerable variation between one ethnic culture and another in Africa? Rural women there do carry exceptionally heavy burdens of agricultural produce, firewood, and as well as their own children. Indeed, the African woman in the village has had to learn incredible balancing skills. Firewood on her head, a baby on her back, and a basket of cassava in one hand and a basket of yam in the other. On the whole, Africa does not score very high marks in those aspects of benevolent sexism, which spares women heavy loads. It says, in contrast, Africa has a higher proportion of matrilineal society than any other continent. Lineage and descent through the mother's family is less rare in Africa than in any other region of the world. Mothers get a chance to determine the clan to which their offsprings belong. In society like Ashanti, the queen mother helped determine who the next Ashanti or emperor was going to be. Benevolent sexism in Ashanti was being translated into real power. Is bride wealth a form of benevolent sexism, or is it disguised bride price? Bride wealth, money given from the groom to the bride's family, is certainly more benevolent than dowry, money given from the bride to the groom. And India has a vigorous system of dowry in which the bride pays for the groom, and the social consequences are much more harmful than in Africa. After having had many baby girls, some Indians' parents have been resorted to female infanticide out of fear of not being able to afford a husband for all of their daughters. But even Africa's bride wealth is not really benevolent sexism unless it increased the power of the woman over the man, or the power of the bride's family over the husband. More often than not, bride wealth gives the husband more power after the payment has been made. This practice strips bride wealth of all pretense of benevolence. It says, aspects of the warrior tradition in Africa have often represented a case of benevolent sexism. Most African society throughout history have expected only men to risk their lives as warriors. Women could risk their lives for their society in other ways, as when they take food to the male warriors in their hiding places. On the whole, Africa has sometimes expected its women to be ready to die for their society, but Africa has rarely expected women to kill for their society. The patriotic duty to kill is gender specific. It is a man's duty. The patriotic duty to die is gender neutral. It can apply to both men and women. Benevolent sexism comes into play when women are spared the duty to destroy other humans' lives. Africa does not normally call upon its women to kill, even in the name of patriotism. So just to stop right there. So right here, it talks about the concept of the black woman and the problem of gender. So as we can see, there is a form of sexism that takes place in certain parts of Africa, but not all of Africa. So where you have in certain parts of African countries or an African government system where women are the leaders, and you have what's called the matrilineal society, like he just mentioned, for the example, in the Ashanti society, the queen mother points out who becomes the next leader in that culture. So, and you got the Dahomey tribe. The Dahomey tribe is the all women tribe. So there's certain parts of African society where women are in control and they have their own type of sorority group where the men cannot be allowed. And it's the same way for the men. All right. But we cannot sit here and act like everything is perfect in Africa either. You know what I'm saying? So there is some issues going on in certain parts regard to the sexism, regard to the rape, regard to abuse of children. You have that in certain parts of Africa. So there's a story about the female circumcision, which took place in Senegal. And as a matter of fact, there was a movie called Malade. Malade was a story about how in the country of Senegal, they used to legalize women getting circumcised at a young age. So girls was getting circumcised at the age of 7. That's where they started. And if anybody know about the circumcision of the female genital area, is very painful, because what you're doing is you're cutting off the clitoris. and you're cutting off the lips that stick on the outside of the vagina, and that area has to be sold. The reason why they did that was to determine the virginity of the young lady. So if the man wanted to marry this woman, in order for him to know that she's a virgin, he has to see that she got circumcised. Now, it's no longer a requirement. There are those who choose to get circumcised, which I wouldn't think that's the brightest idea, but people make choices to get circumcised now. But at one point in time in Senegal, it was an obligation. Women had to go through that process, and that was just very painful. But anyways, getting back to the point, so it just depends on what part of the country that you're in Africa. Every country in Africa is not the same. It does not operate the same way, but there is going to always be some type of internal conflicts and some type of civil issues and political issues going on with each countries, whether it be regard to the males, regard to the females, the children, religion, etc. Yeah. So as he mentioned in this article, there is a matrilineal society and there is patrilineal society. See, and it's funny when people here in the West, especially our brothers, talk about how things were when the men was in control of this, the men was always the head of the household, etc. Not always the case. And this does not take away that the men does not have any form of leadership. Yes, there were men that was in leadership, of course. There were men that was head of household, but it also depends on the culture and of that society and that tribe that you come from too. See, that's the other half that they don't tell people. If you come from a matrilineal culture, then you're going to have the females that are the head, they are the chiefs, etc. If you come from the patrilineal culture, you're going to have the males that are the chief and they are the head and they make all the rules, etc. And then you have a balance of both the matrilineal and patrilineal working together. So yes, they always did value man, woman, and child. They always value that. They also value polygamy as well, because that's what kept the nation stronger. And that's what kept the population going, was polygamy. So polygamy was not just about how many women you can get and how many women you done had sex with just to make yourself feel good. I mean, although people do it for their own ego purpose, but it was also to continue to grow as a nation and continue to have a strong community. That was the purpose. All right. So as you can see, you guys can check that out. That's from Indiana Press University. Indiana University Press. And also the source is Research in Africa Literatures. And this came out in 1993. Okay. All right then. So I'm going to also show the different books that he had also published. So I'm not going to go through the books, but this book right here, it's called Africanity Redefined, Collective Essays of Ali Mazrui, Volume 1. Okay, and this one was written in 2002 from the Africa World Press Incorporated. So you guys can either check it out at your library, or you can go on Amazon, or you can go to Barnes and Nobles if they got this book. Then the second book that, well, no. Okay, well, this is another article I forgot. This is the article that he wrote in 1975, which is called Black Africa and the Arabs. Of course, it goes into the Atlantic No, not Atlantic. The what's it called? The Trans-Sahara slave trade. That's what it's called. So it goes into Trans-Sahara slave trade and talk about the relationship between the Black Africans and the Arabs. And of course, it talks a bit about Islam on here. So, as a matter of fact, I got the time so I can read a little bit of it. So it says Black Africa and the Arabs. Black Africa and the Arabs world have been linked by a fluctuating pattern of economic and cultural connection for at least 12 centuries. In the secular field, the Arabs have, up to this time, played two major roles in Black Africa. First, as accomplices in African enslavement, and then in the 20th century as the as allies in African liberation. In the past several years, they have built this alliance into a comprehensive political partnership aimed at maintaining a solid front, particularly with regard to the Middle East and Southern Africa. The critical question for the future is whether the Arabs will also become partners in African development. The relationship between Arabs and Black African has always been largely asymmetrical, with the Middle East usually the giver and the Black Africa usually the receiver. Throughout the history of their involvement in Black Africa, the Arabs has have been both conquerors and liberators, both traders, enslaved, and purveyors of new ideas. Trade and Islam have been companions throughout, with the crescent following the commercial caravan, the Muslim calling believers to prayers from the marketplace. The Arab slave trade was a significant part of this commerce from the 9th through the 19th centuries, while the transatlantic slave trade on the west coast of Africa was certainly larger and more important. The activities of Arab slavers on the east seaboard lasted a few decades longer until they were officially outlawed in the late 1800s. Thus, Islam may have been somewhat compromised in East Africa by the nature of its purveyors, who, in addition to slaving, also created Arab cities, states along the East Coast. The European colonization did, at any rate, arrest the spread of the religion in East Africa more effectively than in the West. In the East African countries of Kenya, Uganda, and Malawi, Islamization came to an almost abrupt halt in the face of the Europe Christian challenge. In West Africa, on the other hand, Islam has continued to expand in spite of the impressive countervailing efforts of Christian missionaries and of the technological prestige of European civilization. A number of West African countries, including Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea, Mali, and Niger, are now predominantly Muslim, as is the northern part of Nigeria. All right, so that's the article. And again, it was written in 1975. Ali Mazrui, Black Africa and the Arabs. The source is Foreign Affairs, published by Council on Foreign Relations. All right. Okay, let me see what this person's saying. Same Missouri, different from me. The U in his name is like a long U, like saying Zulu. Okay. Um. All right. Also, here's another book you guys can also check out for your personal time. Okay. All right, so the name of this book is also a documentary series. It's called The African A Triple Heritage by Ali Mazrui. Okay. All right, I'm waiting for it to load up. But anyway, this is the title of the book here. I'm trying to see what year this book came out. It's also a documentary that could be probably found on PBS. I'm trying to see what year this book came out. Okay, so I guess the documentary came out in 1986, so the book came out in 1986 as well, as you can see. So it's copyright. Yeah, copyright 1986. All right, but you guys can also check that out. I won't be really going into that book, but yeah, it's called The African A Triple Heritage. Ali Al Mazrui, a companion volume to the acclaimed PBS series. All right, so anyways, that is it. That is all. Okay, well, it would be hard for me to say his name in that way because I don't have an African native tongue. You know, I don't have a very strong African accent, so I can't really say his name in that way. So I'm saying it the best way I know how. But thank you, though. But that's the best way I know how to pronounce his name. I'm not good at foreign names like that. So, anyways, you get who the author is, you get the title. So the title is Professor Ali Mazrui or Mazrui, or however it's pronounced. Um, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I thank you all for watching. And again, this is just about literary sources. So if you guys want to look up more sources, you guys can just check the video from the very beginning and look it up for yourselves. And you can find out more information about this author, about this individual. You can find his documentary on PBS or on YouTube channel. So that's all I'm here to do, just present literary sources. I never claimed to be a scholar. I never claimed to be an educator. That's not something that's in my field. That's not my forte. But all I just want to do is present information so you guys can do your homework assignment and you can look things up for yourself. Okay, it's not that hard to do. All right, you just have to take the time out to do so, because if you keep listening to these YouTubers that's telling you other information that's inaccurate and that has been debunked or pseudo, then that's on you. So that's on you if you choose to be gullible and listen to everybody else. So that's why you need to do your own homework assignment. You need to do your own research. You need to look up your own shit. You need to find out the things that you want to know. Okay? You can do that. But you got to take the initiative. The person themselves got to do it. So, but anyways, thank you all. For those of you that are watching, thank you for watching this channel. Share the video, check out the content, hit the notification bell. And again, shout out to the new subscribers that has been on here. Thank you all so much. Until then, this your girl Tiffany. Peace and power and elevation be to all of you. And until next time, I will check you guys. I will check in. So I'll come up with more topics and we'll go from there. All right. Peace.